In the term, David, probably not very much, because again, this is a test that reportedly, and again, all this according to a report from the Financial Times that I don't think anyone has been able to independently confirm, the test didn't exactly succeed. The missile missed its targets by, in the Financial Times words, 24 miles, but 25 miles, but 40 kilometers off target. That's a significant difference, depending on what target you're going to hit. So in the immediate term, it doesn't seem like it makes a big difference. But of course, it's obviously very concerning because the Chinese can obviously develop it further, and one would expect that they'll be able to conduct more tests and to be able to refine it and actually have the missile be able to hit its target. And I think the biggest set of concern is the effect of evasion, that it can evade American defense systems. And then in effect, this test, it was itself an evasion of the US intelligence agencies, who reportedly didn't have any idea that this was going to happen and didn't have any idea that China had this capability or was developing this capability or was this far along at developing its capability. So I think that's what's raised a lot of concern in those circles quoted by the Financial Times and others, is the fact that the United States didn't know about this, doesn't know how to counter it, and doesn't know where it's going.
Now, given that, is this the apparent top foreign policy issue for the Biden administration at this point? China, countering China? What can we tell?
Of course, countering China is the top foreign policy issue. They're very explicit about that, including, by the way, the Pentagon spokesperson in that article, in the response to the article in the report in the Financial Times, saying China is our number one issue, number one pacing issue in the lingo of the Pentagon. But certainly, China is the number one foreign policy issue for the Biden administration. They've been very explicit about it. Not necessarily in terms of a direct nuclear clash, but obviously, David, if you have this kind of capability tested, ready, and refined, where the Chinese are not yet, but where they would ultimately potentially be able to get, that's in your back pocket in every interaction with the United States. So if China were in a scenario to try to invade Taiwan, as has been discussed so much over the last few weeks, this is the backdrop to the United States' decisions on how to respond, with the knowledge that in a worst case scenario, China would potentially have this kind of weapon. Obviously, that changes the calculus. It means that the United States might have to be a lot more risk averse, and China could then expand its sphere of influence. And obviously, that plays into the wider game between the two countries.
This has been a pattern, as you mentioned, the last few weeks. So much discussion, really, issues, things happening on the ground or in the skies, I should say, around Taiwan. But now this apparently ratcheting up situation. There was the whole issue with the nuclear submarines recently. The U.S., we're likely to see them some other open counter movements, some other response essentially to this. Where does this go? How high do the sides keep climbing on this issue?
Well, look, obviously the U.S.-China tensions didn't need this report. And again, we should emphasize it is still a report. Although I think the Financial Times presents some convincing evidence that they're right about this. But listen, the U.S.-China tensions didn't need this to be ramped up. There are plenty of other fronts. We've seen them all over the world, in the economic sphere, in the political sphere, in the security sphere, and that obviously isn't going to go away. In terms of nuclear weapons, what I think would be called for is some kind of arms control agreement or discussion between the two countries, but that hasn't gone anywhere so far. Obviously, this is an issue that's here for the long term. The question is, will the Chinese see it as being in their interest to try to get into some kind of arms control agreement with the United States and with Russia? One of the many open questions in terms of how this relationship, the all-important relationship of the 21st century, is going to be managed.
Well, Alterman, thanks for the breakdown of the latest.